What's up, guys? It's Light Spiral here today, and today I should also just start this out by saying that Hyper isn't also going to be making this video with me. Right now I am just going to be making this by myself. It's a top 5 natural 2 stars in Summoner's War. And so basically with these top 5s, this is my first one, so I'm just going to do a little bit of an introduction. With these top 5s, I'm just going to do the top 5s of categories. I might go over a couple of honorable mentions. And so now I'll just kind of get into it now. Starting off with the honorable mentions, just for a start, I want to say Taharis is a very good monster, Lulu's a good monster, Rakaja's a good monster. And one thing that I need to say before I forget, I'm not including light and dark monsters in this, it's just the original 3, water, wind, fire. Or I shouldn't say the original 3, but the normal 3. And so there, I gave you 3 honorable mentions. I'm sure there's other honorable mentions that I'm actually forgetting. But in just a second here, I'm going to start pulling up the number 5 spot on this list. And so in number 5, we have Colleen, the Fire Harpoo. And I'm not going to go over their skills or anything. I'm just going to give a little bit of a spotlight as to why they're good. Colleen has an... I'm going to assume all these monsters right here are max skilled. She has an AoE heal of like 25%. An attack bar, or not attack bar, attack power buff, disturb HP recovery, and her first skill, I believe, is a sword break. I'm not positive on that part, but she's a really good monster. She's a little bit on the squishy side, and you don't use her because of her amazing attack or defensive or HP abilities. You use her for her skills. She pairs really nicely with monsters like Belladon, who's another farmable 3-star light monster. If you guys end up getting it, and what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, when you max skill her, her skills are almost 100% chance to land the debuffs. And so now we're going into the 4th place spot is Kona. Now this is a monster that I'm sure a lot of you guys have at least heard of is good. I'm going to assume that most of you guys that are watching this aren't late game players, but mid game and early game players who are looking for monsters to help you out. Because most late game players either have discovered these monsters already or don't need them because they have other good monsters. But Kona has a Resurge, which is an attack bar buff and attack bar fill. A cleanse, a really minor heal on the cleanse. It's an AoE cleanse and heal. And she has a pretty good, or she, I don't know, has a pretty good chance to stun with the first skill. So this monster is really useful in stuff like dragons or against anything that has like a shield break or something like that, or armor break or whatever you want to call it. A really good monster, and honestly, Colleen, in my opinion, was the definite 5th spot, but numbers 4 through 1 were really kind of like personal preference. So with that said, in the 3rd spot, I do have Seek. Seek is a monster that they actually give you at the very beginning of the game, so if you haven't already used it as a fodder, don't use it as a fodder. I'd recommend taking it all the way up even to 6-starring, in my opinion. He's a really good monster in TOA, and in some dungeons, in some arena, he can be really effective too. His first 2 skills are just attack skills, but it's his 3rd skill that really makes him good. Plus with his naturally high speed, you can swift blade him with speed attack percent, or whatever you want. Just make sure you get swift and speed in the 2 slot. But his 3rd skill is reusable in 3 turns, which is an attack power and a crit rate buff. So basically the whole game, your whole team will get attack power and crit rate buffs, which can be really helpful, especially like I said in TOA and in various arenas like monsters that you could fight against. So going into the 2nd spot, this in my opinion would have to be Shannon, the Wind Pixie. Shannon is not used for her like card stats, if you want to say, those stats in the bottom left, but because her first skill lands glancing hits, which is really good, or makes a opponent team land glancing hits, which is really good. Her 2nd skill is a decelerate, which can come in really handy against a ton of bosses and a ton of just like everything. She's good in giants, in in TOA and scenario battles and whatever you want. And her 3rd skill increases the attack power and the defense of every monster for 3 turns. So in total, she is actually a really good mon. And I said earlier that 1st through 4th weren't really, were kind of like personal preference. I'm going to have to say right now that 1st place, I would definitely have to call the first place mon in first place, at least in my opinion. I might have a little bit of a bias to it, but now it's popped up on the screen. And I did pick Rammus because I think Rammus is a very good monster, and I had in mind when I was doing this that people who are going to be watching a video on the top 5 2-stars are going to be people who don't have the best monsters yet. They haven't pulled all the good 3 stars, all the good 4 stars, or 5 stars, or whatever yet. And Rammus is a really good monster to start out with. And for those of you who don't know about Rammus, his first skill is, it's okay, it can make their attack bar go down. His second skill, which is a crouch, which recovers your HP and your health back. And his last skill is a clean shot, which does the amount of damage taken onto him, he deals back. So he has a ton of HP. If you just get as much HP as possible out of him, honestly, I wouldn't say this would be a bad option for your first 5-star, your first 4-star, if you haven't made that yet either. Rammus is just a really good monster, and he's only a natural 2-star. So that's all I really have on the actual top 5 monsters. Feel free to leave your comments about any monsters that you think should or shouldn't have made this list, because this is all a personal preference video. There's no like hard stats saying this monster is the best or this one is not the best or whatever. So be sure to leave your opinions in the comment section, as well as any videos that you would like me to post, as in like tips for any kind of levels you're trying to beat, or maybe another top 5 that you'd like to see, like maybe top 5 natural 3 stars, top 5 farmable 3 stars, top 5 whatever you want, top 5 wind, water, fire, whatever. Be sure to tell me in the comment section, and I'll try my hardest to get that video out, and maybe the next video will actually be involving Hyper. But that's all I have for today, guys. So may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows.